Hello everybody, my name is Mohit Deshpande, and in this video I want to set up the UI for our app. So what I mean by setting up the UI is I want to at least get all the track bars in place. So to do this, there is, as you probably guessed, there's an OpenCV function that we can use to create track bars and add them to the window. We call it by using cv2.create track bar. The first parameter we pass it is the name of the track bar. And I'm going to say this is first we'll do contrast. Second is the name of the window in which we're creating this track bar, which is app. Then the next is what the initial value is and which is going to be, we'll say it's 1. The reason that it's not 0 is because if you remember back the equation, if contrast is 0, then it basically zeroes out the entire image and we just get a black image. It isn't what we want. So a contrast of 1 is going to give us the original image, basically. So the next parameter is then the maximum value, and these track bars are kind of limited in the sense that the minimum value always is 0, and we can only specify the maximum value, and the increments are in increments of 1. So I'm going to set this maximum value to be 100. And then this final parameter is actually a callback. So this callback will be, this is a function, and it'll be called whenever this track bar is changed. But we don't want to do that because we had this nice UI loop that we set up, so we might as well use it. But we still have to pass in something here. So I'm just going to say something like dummy. We have to create a dummy function. Def dummy takes a value, and that's the value of the actual track bar, and I'm going to say pass. And what this does is this is a dummy function, doesn't actually do anything, but we have to supply it because OpenCV says so. So now that we have contrast, we want to do brightness as well. So we'll do cv2.create track bar brightness app. Now here's the interesting thing about brightness though. We want, with the initial value of brightness, if we set it to 0, then that works out because in the gamma array, there's a gamma matrix is 0 and we're not adding anything. However, then we're like only limiting our app to add brightness. What if we want to subtract brightness? Well, then we can't start at 0 because OpenCV track bars have a minimum value of 0. So here's a neat little trick. What we'll do is we'll set this to be 50. So then we'll call 50 to be the new kind of 0 point. So anything below 50 is going to add negative brightness or negative value for brightness, and there's nothing against that. And then anything greater than 50 will actually add positive brightness, which is, what we usually think of when we have brightness. So the maximum value of this is still going to be 100, but note that this is now going to be like 50 units of bright and 50 units of dark, depending on which side of this 50 you're on. And then we can just use the same dummy callback because we have this nice UI loop, so we don't want to do any callback stuff. Okay, so we have that, and now we need to create our filters, and the filters actually don't have a specific, they don't have a specific maximum value per se, so we're obviously gonna add filters to our app a bit later on, so at this point I just kind of want to substitute in some value here. So filter app, we can start at 0. That's perfectly fine because the filters are going to be like discrete units, so it's fine if we start at 0. As for the max value, we are just going to leave this as like 1 here because we're going to fill it in a bit later on. So then we're going to use the same dummy callback, and there's one last thing that we need, and that is grayscale. So cv2.create track bar, and then grayscale app. And then this is a switch. So a switch just has we just want to have two values, 0 or 1. So the initial value is going to be 0 and the max value is going to be 1. And then we use the same dummy function. Okay, so now that we've set up all this, let us actually run this app and see if it's made any changes to our UI. So I'll save this and I'll run it, and you can see that, hey, look, it's indeed added track bars to our UI. So I can move these sliders around, I can move brightness around over here, and I can also change filter is actually currently a switch, and grayscale is currently a switch filter. We're actually going to expand it out a bit later on. There's actually a really cool dynamic way. I'm going to show you how we can add filters. But anyway, we just want to get this basic functionality of our app finished, so that in the next few videos, then we can actually focus on applying these values. So like what happens when we actually apply contrast and brightness, when we fetch these values from the track bars and actually do something with this contrast and brightness. So we're going to get to some of that stuff in the next video, but I just want to recap what we did in this video, and that is we just created these track bars that are going to be our main UI for this app. So we kind of covered that in this video, and then the next video we're actually going to go ahead and set up our code to actually do stuff when these track bars actually change. So we're going to get to that stuff in the next video.